You have found Behind the Lines presented by BetMGM for week number 12. My name is Stephen Andress, joined each and every week by Christian Cipollini, trading manager over at BetMGM. In this episode, we will look back at the week that was betting in the NFL in week 11, the biggest public wins, the biggest public losses. We will also look ahead to the early week spreads and totals over at BetMGM, and I will share any bets I have already placed into my account. First of all, Christian, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving week to you, sir.
Yeah, doing good here. Nice football on early slate this week, so it's a good week.
Triple header on Thursday for the first time, a Black Friday game as well. We'll get to those spreads in a minute, but first let's talk about last week. Most of the time, I think it's been a winning week for the book. I think we've only had 2 winning weeks so far this season for the public at BetMGM. So what was the verdict in week number 11?
It was a really, really weird week. There was a lot of really big spreads, and then it finished out weird. I believe favorites ended up 4-11 or something like that, but straight up they were 10-3. So it was a weird week from that aspect because we got hit on a few money line parlays, teasers that hit, but the individual games, a lot of them actually went in the book's favor. So a good example is Detroit didn't cover that big spread. Miami didn't cover that big spread. A lot of them didn't cover those, ended up going our way. The ones that didn't go our way were Buffalo and Dallas, those ones where they just completely covered outright. But we were on the dogs all weekend. Pretty much any dog that didn't cover was where we lost. And the ones that did were
fair enough. I want to talk briefly too about the Monday night game between the Eagles and the Chiefs. That one stays under pretty comfortably. Couple of red zone turnovers for the Chiefs in that game. What was the outcome of that? Because I know most of the time in years past you get a lot of Mahomes money in prime time, but I know the Eagles have been a popular side overall as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of people taking the Eagles on the money line, but then the Chiefs on the spread. Ended up being a winning game for us and actually really helped on the week because we had a very small winner up until last night. But the under was really where it saved us. And Justin Watson scoring the first touchdown and A.J. Brown not scoring. A.J. Brown going way under. Props like that really would turn that game. It wasn't too big of a difference between the Eagles or the Chiefs losing. A lot of that ended up being the props and all those other markets that got settled. Most of them went in our favor. And we were a little bit lopsided. We did have more. We did end up having more Chiefs money on the spread than we ended up on Eagles on the money line. So it did end up working. And then obviously the props not hitting helped.
I feel like every week when we get to these island games, your marketing team puts out the information on the most popular props that are out there, and they're always overs, right? Or they're always a guy to score a touchdown. So I'm guessing, generally speaking, when it's one of these lower scoring games that we've got a lot of this year where the total's under 40 and it lands under 40, that's generally going to be a great result for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. You want to factor in now that we have all these same game parlays too. A lot of those are contingent on a high scoring game. So when those don't happen, especially on a primetime game, it ends up working out in our favor.
All right, let's look ahead now to week 12 in the NFL. Of course, it's Thanksgiving week. We have the traditional teams playing as well as a Thursday night game in the NFC West. So, Christian, let's look first at those Thursday games, and we'll get to Black Friday in a minute here. The triple header on Turkey Day, beginning with the Packers at the Lions at 12:30 p.m. on Thursday.
Yeah, Packers at the Lions. Lions are 7.5-point favorites at home with a 47-point total. Commanders at Cowboys. Cowboys are 11-point favorites with the 48.5-point total. And then primetime game on Thursday night, 49ers at Seahawks. 49ers are 6.5-point road favorites with a 43-point total.
The movement on this Niners game was interesting to me. It ticked up a little bit because of uncertainty of whether or not Geno Smith would play. Now it looks like he's probably going to play, so now we're back down under the key number of 7. I'm fine with that. I've bet Niners minus 6.5 in this one. I think it's generally a bad matchup for Seattle, a team that they have yet to show that they can be competitive against, including in a playoff game against San Francisco a year ago. And the Niners, I could give very credible excuses for the 3 losses that they had this year. Brock Purdy had a concussion. They were down their left tackle and Deebo Samuel as well. When at full strength, they have looked like one of, if not the best teams in the NFL. Personally, I have ranked them as number 1 just for this week and this week only. In week 12, I would have them favored over every other team in the NFL on a neutral field. So I was comfortable taking the 6.5 here. And I think you're going to get a lot of money line parlays or maybe teasers with the Detroit Lions this week, Christian. I mean, it happened last week against the Bears. They had every reason to lose that game outright with a massive differential in the turnover column. They still somehow pull it out and save it. I think that's going to be a very popular teaser side. I've already put in a teaser with the Lions as well, and I'll share a couple of the other teaser leg options I like. If you want to go non-traditional, you could go 49ers, although you're not getting as much value with that one already under the key number of 7. All right, first Black Friday game, Christian, in NFL history on Prime Video. And a note to everybody, if you don't have Prime Video, they actually are showing it for free. So for this game at least, you don't have to subscribe to Prime to see Dolphins at the Jets. I'm sure we're all going to be inundated with the great Black Friday deals at Amazon in the midst of this game, but at least we get some football out of it. It is Tim Boyle taking over for the New York Jets at quarterback and hosting one of the best offenses in the league in the Miami Dolphins. Where do we sit right now, Christian?
Yeah, you mentioned that it's going to be a big teaser one. These 4 games are all big spreads, and it's one for the book where they're going to get a lot of teasers, a lot of money line parlay action. So we're going to need one of these underdogs to win. I can already tell that from here. But Dolphins at the Jets. Dolphins are 10-point road favorites and a 40-point total.
My reaction to this game has to be about the line movement we've seen already, Christian. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this one was more closer to 7.5 before the news that it was Tim Boyle, correct?
Yeah, it was. It actually opened at 7.5 and then sharply jumped up to where we're sitting at 10 now.
So my conclusion is that as bad as Zach Wilson has been, the sharp action, the professional bettors that you respect as a book to move lines have the opinion that somehow Tim Boyle is worse than Zach Wilson. Fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's also Tim Boyle on a short week versus the Dolphins. It's one of those we're just never going to end up getting any Jets money at all. So, yeah, I mean, that is what it is. I mean, it's not much of a upgrade, or it's not much of a downgrade from Zach Wilson and the way they're playing. It's just more of the offense looks like they can't do anything, and that offensive line just continually rolling through people is also what's not helping it there. It almost kind of doesn't matter who's back there at quarterback at the moment. No one's going to have any time to do anything back there.
Yeah, for me, I stayed away from the side on this one. I did bet under 40.5. Looks like you guys are sitting at 40 right now. Just my mindset on this one, don't think Tim Boyle's an upgrade. I agree with that. One of our writers, Evan Scrimshaw, astutely noted the incredibly high interception percentage that Tim Boyle has in his career, more than 7%, which is just like ludicrously bad protecting the football. And of course, obviously, the Miami Dolphins offense. You could look at that game against the Raiders and say they didn't score that many points, but they had a ton of yardage, a ton of drives that didn't turn into as many points. I thought that was more of an outlier in terms of their final score and the amount of offense they put on the scoreboard, at least. But the Jets defense is really good. So maybe this isn't a 30-point game for the Dolphins, and I'm not sure the Jets are getting to 14 points again this week with Tim Boyle at quarterback. So yes, a turnover deep in his own territory might screw me on this over. That's always the battle when you're betting an under of this low and you have a really bad quarterback. You might get some basically free points on the other side, but that's the risk I'm willing to take. So I'll take under 40.5 here on the Jets and Dolphins game on Black Friday. Let's look ahead here to the early window on Sunday in Week 12, Christian, and not as many games as we would typically get on a normal Sunday, but still a decent little red zone window here for us.
Yeah, I got Saints at Falcons. Right now we have it as a pick'em, even both sides with a 42-point total. Steelers Bengals. We have Steelers as a slight favorite here, 1-point favorite on the road against the Bengals, and this is a 34.5-point total. Panthers Titans. Titans are 3.5-point home favorites with a 37-point total. Bucks at Colts. Colts are 2.5-point home favorites with a 43-point total. Patriots Giants. Patriots are 3-point road favorites with the lowest total of the week at 33.5. Last of the 1 o'clocks. Jags at Texans. Jags are 1.5 point road favorites with a 48.5 point total.
The game that stands out to me here that I will tell everybody I will have in my account at some point, I just haven't done it yet, is the Bucks at the Colts. And we got some early action this week to move this out to 2.5. Christian, I believe, from open. And I guess that's an angle off the Colts being on a bye last week. There are a couple of injuries in the Bucks secondary that we need to monitor and keep track of because they've had a couple games this year where they were missing those guys and the defense didn't look nearly as good. So I'm monitoring that. If this were to get to 3, I would bet the Bucks right away, despite those injuries. This line to me is implying if you take away home field advantage that the Colts are better than the Bucks on a neutral field, and I disagree with that. I think the Bucks are the better team. I have them ranked higher this week. If we don't get the 3, I'm probably teasing this up to 8.5. This would be one I would pair with Detroit. There's a couple other options on Sunday as well if you still want to hold out and wait for the 3. But yeah, I think the Bucks are the better team at this point, and the Colts aren't going to be able to run the ball against this Bucks defense, so it's going to make them pretty one-dimensional. Where Gardner Minshew is going to have to go out and win the game, and I'm happy to bet against that. So that's another early week angle I'm looking at in this one. 4 p.m. Eastern time window on Sunday. Christian, what do you got?
Yeah, 4 games here. Browns at Broncos. Broncos are 2.5 point home favorites with a 35.5 point total. Rams Cardinals, another pick 'em here. Cardinals at home with a 44.5 point total. Chiefs Raiders. Chiefs are 9.5 point road favorites with a 43.5 point total. And then we have Bills at Eagles. Eagles are 3.5 point home favorites with a 48.5 point total.
I've already bet the Bills plus 3.5 against the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think the Eagles have been pretty darn fortunate to get wins in each of their past 2 games for several reasons. Let's just focus on the Chiefs game from Monday night. 2 red zone turnovers from the Chiefs, and not just from some of their players who aren't very good. We're talking about a Patrick Mahomes end zone interception, a Travis Kelce fumble down in the scoring area. If they just get field goals out of that, they might still win that game on Monday night. And the Eagles offense still wasn't great moving the ball, less than 5 yards per play in that one. So, credit to the Eagles. They won the game. They pulled it out. Great defensive effort. One of the best we've seen this year. But I think that was a situation where I'd be still willing to back the Chiefs moving forward. And I'm looking for ways to fade the Eagles' pass defense. We didn't see it with the crappy Kansas City receivers on Monday night. But the Buffalo Bills offense, despite the losses they've taken and the turnovers that they've had, have still moved the ball basically at will for the vast majority of this season. They are still among the elites in terms of the advanced offensive metrics. And if they're not turning the ball over, you saw what they could do against a very strong Jets defense just last week. So if they clean that up, I think they can have success passing the ball against this Eagles secondary. We'll see how healthy the Bills defense is. That's still obviously a big issue. I've talked about that a lot in recent weeks. But to get over a field goal in this game was attractive to me. So I added Buffalo plus 3.5 into the account. I mentioned other teaser legs here for this week. I think Cleveland's another solid one. The total's only 35.5. And this line is implying that the Broncos are better than the Browns on a neutral field. I get that with DTR at quarterback for Cleveland, but they still have the best unit on the field with this defense. This is a historic defense at this point. Another situation like the Bucks where I'm waiting to see if it gets to 3. Not sure it will, but looks like a strong teaser leg here this week. Hard to imagine the Broncos beating anybody by more than a touchdown, especially the number 1 defense in the entire NFL. All right, Christian, let's wrap up with the primetime window, Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football for Week 12.
Yeah, Ravens at the Chargers. Ravens are 4 point road favorites with a 47 point total. And then Monday night, Bears at the Vikings. Vikings are 3.5 point home favorites with a 45 point total.
Brandon Staley telling reporters to stop asking him the same question. The offense looks like it's completely reliant on Keenan Allen in the passing game. 4 on the road is a big number to lay in the NFL, but it's clear the Ravens are being rated as one of the 5 best teams in the NFL moving forward. I'm not sure I'm going to bet it. I'm curious if we will get any Chargers action as a home dog here. A little concerned without Mark Andrews on the field now, likely for the Ravens. We'll see the extent of that injury, but The Chargers are definitely a team that I'm looking to bet against still moving forward. Did it last week in the Packers game, cashed that bet. Still looking for ways to fade the Chargers here, despite the fact that I kind of still have them as a top 12 team in the NFL by default because there's nobody else I can put above them, it seems. But when they're playing this upper tier, it's just not a team I want to back here in the LA Chargers. Christian, I'm going to wrap up here with one more question for you. Off of the Monday night game where the Eagles beat the Chiefs, we often talk about who the number one team is in the NFL for this week and this week only. Chiefs take a loss. If the playoffs were to start today, the Ravens would be the one seed in the AFC. I think there's like that group of 5 teams that anybody could make a fair debate on, but just your personal opinion, who's the number one team in the NFL at present right now?
Even though they lost last night, I'm still going to stick with the Chiefs. Until Patrick Mahomes proved me wrong, I'm gonna still stay there. I think they still looked like the better team last night despite losing. So I'm still going to go from there. From the books perspective, we kind of have it in 2 tiers at this point: Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1, Eagles, Chiefs, 49ers. We have them as 3 co-favorites at the moment. And then into Tier 2, we have Ravens, Dolphins, Cowboys, Lions. That's the next one we have there. So at this point, those are probably the 7 most realistic teams to win. Outside of that, we're kind of saying they don't really have a chance. Those are the 7 at the moment.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Basically agree with everything you just said. I will say personally, I am not closing the door on the Buffalo Bills for one specific reason. If the Chiefs were not to get the 1 seed in the AFC, the Bills will likely be a wild card team if they sneak in. A win would mean it would require potentially another wild card team to pull an upset, or just the Bills are going to go there by default. With reseeding in the playoffs, it's likely the Bills as a wild card would have to go play the 1 seed in the divisional round. If that's not the Chiefs, then the path is a lot easier for Buffalo to get back to the AFC title game, and we're looking at 13, 14 to 1 right now on Buffalo. They have a big uphill climb, a very tough schedule, starting with the Eagles this week, but I'm not closing the door yet. I see a lot of similarities to the runs the 49ers made the past couple of years here after taking a lot of losses midseason. I still think the upside is there. I think the price is right, and I think the path has gotten a little easier here too. Didn't even mention that the Browns lost Watson, and obviously the Bengals lost Joe Burrow, and the Steelers look like the most fraudulent team in the NFL among the contenders to this point right now. So you're telling me there's a chance on Buffalo. That's all I'm going to say. So, and Christian, if Buffalo were to make the playoffs, like we're looking at 13, 14 to 1 right now, but if they make the playoffs as, a wild card, I'm guessing they're not going to be more than a field goal dog to a team like Miami or Jacksonville or Houston. And then against the Ravens, they're probably not going to be that big of a dog either, just in those individual matchups if they're on the road. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they wouldn't be crazy dogs. It wouldn't be anything. It wouldn't be surprising if they, end up sneaking one out. They'd certainly be a team that you probably wouldn't want to play come to that point, because they are explosive. They can, pull. The offense can go off at any minute. The defense has obviously been shaky, but all it takes is one good game, and next thing you know, they've knocked you off. So I think that's a good point you made there too. They're priced at where they're sitting, and they still, have they have a hard schedule the rest of the way, and a little bit of an uphill battle just to make that wild card spot. But barring they do it, they'd be considered still one of those top tier teams, but certainly rated lower than those 7 I mentioned before.
Playoff picture at present: Bills are the 8 seed, first team out, a half game behind the Steelers. Steelers at 6-4, Texans also 6-4, the 6 seed. Bills sitting 6-5 for the pride of Buffalo. The remaining schedule at Philly this week, then a much-needed bye week that might help the defense. And then the murderer's row continues at Kansas City, home against Dallas. And then they finish up at the Chargers, home against the Patriots, and at Miami, which we mentioned already in a previous episode. Maybe Miami's resting starters in that last game, and it does the Bills a favor. So we'll see how this plays out for sure. Christian, fantastic insight as always. We appreciate you coming on each and every week and giving the sportsbook's opinion, the sportsbook's perspective on all these different things. for everybody else out there, we have kind of a truncated schedule with the Thanksgiving slate this week. The Megapod we're going to record on Wednesday. We're going to go through the Thanksgiving games, the Black Friday game, and share at least a few of the bets that we're making on Sunday. So a little bit smaller with the holiday schedule. And obviously, you can check out all our other shows on our YouTube channel and our podcast feed as well. For Christian Cipollini, I'm Stephen Andress. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Best of luck in week number 12.